Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. I kick the bedroom door, the latch cracks, wood splinters, my shoulder burns. I am Mara, 33, and I know I'm already late. My mother stands by the bed with both hands lifted. Clara doesn't answer when I call her name, silence bites. Move, I grab my mother's elbow and yank hard. She pivots without fight, face unreadable, eyes steady. Clara's chest barely rises, faint and wrong. I press 2 fingers to her neck and feel a thin flutter that scares me. I dial emergency on speaker. My voice shakes, but I force the address out. Child unresponsive. The operator fires questions that scrape my nerves. I hover over my daughter and wait for the next order. Check airway. I tip Clara's head and see nothing blocked. Start compressions. My palms stack over her sternum and I push hard. 1, 2, 3. I count out loud so I don't break apart. My mother watches from the footboard with a quiet patience. She slides a hand along the rail like she is smoothing a wrinkle. Stop for a moment. The whisper lands like a slap. I double the pressure and ignore her. Is she breathing now? The operator waits for my answer. A shallow gasp slips past Clara's lips, then vanishes. Continue compressions. The line crackles, the command repeats. Sweat stings my eyes and my shoulders tremble. I scan the nightstand, no cups, no bottles, nothing helpful. The floor holds a tipped stool that wasn't there this morning. The wood mark on the rug points at the bed like an arrow. My mother follows my eyes and then looks away fast. Sirens roll closer, thin at first, then close like a wall. I keep rhythm and whisper my daughter's name between numbers. My mother steps toward the doorway, then stops and waits. She folds her hands like a person in church. Why are you here? The question slips out before I can swallow it. She flinches once like the sound nicked her. I heard her crying. She keeps her gaze on the bedding, not on me. The operator asks if any substances are in reach. I smell something sweet, sharp, unfamiliar, and my mouth floods. Yes, maybe. I can't name it, and that terrifies me more. My mother wets her lips, then wipes her palm on her skirt. You won't like what comes next. The line sends another command and tears blur the screen. I lower for rescue breaths and pray I don't miss. Footsteps hammer the stairs. A firefighter shoulders through the frame with a battered bag. I roll back and keep counting with him. Another medic slides past my mother, who does not move an inch. They transfer Clara to a board with crisp motions. One medic checks her pupils and doesn't hide the worry. The other draws something into a syringe and waits for a call. I grip the footboard so I won't collapse. What happened here? The firefighter's question hangs as he scans the room. My mother answers first with the calmest tone I've heard in months. She slept, then she needed help. The medic and I lock eyes because that sentence stinks. They load my daughter onto a stretcher and start moving. I follow, knees weak, heart loud, hands empty. My mother trails us with the stride of someone finishing errands. I feel a cold certainty I can't explain, and I hate it. On the landing, a medic pauses and lifts the blanket. He studies the corner and calls for another pair of gloves. What is that? His partner leans close and frowns at the faint residue. My mother glances down and then fixes on the wall. We hit the front door and the night slaps me awake. The ambulance waits with doors open like a mouth. I step in and take Clara's ankle in my hand. Heat still lives there and I grip it like a promise. My mother stands just outside the doors as they swing shut. Her expression holds no panic and no relief. She lifts her chin like something has been decided. The latch bites, metal seals, and the world narrows to beeps. Tell me again. The medic holds 2 fingers to Clara's pulse. Who is in the house today? I swallow and say it clear because I need witnesses. Just me and my mother until you arrived. He notes it down and tapes a line to Clara's arm. The driver calls out a timestamp and punches the gas. I watch the monitor climb and stall and stutter. Every number feels like a verdict we can't appeal. A dull ache creeps into my palms from the compressions. I flex and feel the grind of bone against bone. Somewhere under the siren I hear my mother's voice again, not words, just the cadence, like a bedtime song turned wrong. We swing into the bay and the doors fly open. A nurse takes over with fierce focus and tight instructions. The gurney rolls fast into the blinding corridor. I jog to keep up because letting go feels like betrayal. At the threshold, a security guard blocks my mother with one arm. She doesn't argue, she waits. She looks almost relieved. She brushes a speck from her sleeve and exhales. I stumble after the gurney and force myself not to turn. Inside the treatment room, a doctor checks swallow reflex, then nods grim. Nurses move with brutal efficiency that gives me hope. I'm on it. Or alarms and the team shifts like one animal. I stand pinned to the cabinet and try to breathe. Family outside. A nurse points to the hall without looking up. I back out and the door thumps closed between us. Through the glass I see hands moving and faces tightening. My knees lock because if I bend I will fall. Across the hall my mother chooses a chair and sits alone. She places her purse on her lap and holds the strap. No shaking, no tears. She waits like a person for a number to be called. My phone vibrates until I finally see the missed calls. Neighbors, work, none of that matters because the only fact is here. I press my palm flat to the door window. Inside, the doctor calls for a specific dose and the room tightens. A detective arrives with a quick nod and a blank pad. You're the mother. He watches my face and the twitch in my jaw. I need a first pass while they work. I give him the bones and save the nerves for later. He asks one last question, soft and too even. Does your mother ever act strange around your daughter? My mouth opens then shuts because my answer will echo forever. I look at the chair across the hall and feel the floor tilt. A nurse steps out with a thin sheet of updates. Stabilized for now, running labs, prepare for transfer upstairs. The relief is small and shaky and already fading. I look at my mother and something inside me goes cold. The nurse catches the shift in my face and waits. I point at the chair without letting my hand shake. Keep her here until someone speaks with her. My voice lands harder than I expected, and that scares me too. The detective follows my eyes and writes a note with care. He asks me to stay within sight and not wander. I nod because leaving feels like desertion and also like guilt. He walks toward the chair and my breath jerks. My mother meets him with a pleasant nod and folded hands. She offers her wrist for the light touch he uses. They speak quietly, heads close, gestures clipped and tidy. Her smile never reaches her eyes and the hairs rise on my neck. An orderly wheels past with an empty crib meant for infants. The sight hits like a hammer and I grip the rail. My throat locks and then opens with a harsh gasp. I realize I'm shaking and I can't make it stop. The detective gestures toward a side room and my mother stands. She smooths her skirt and glances once toward the treatment door. I did what was needed, she murmurs with almost no breath. The words slide under my skin and sit there like ice. The nurse waves me into a side room and shuts the door. My hands won't open until I pry each finger loose. Across the glass, I track the team as they work. I brace for news I can't undo. The detective enters with a quiet stride and a clipped nod. Walk me through the last hour. His pen hovers and waits. I give him movement and timing and the smell I can't name. He asks what my mother touched first. I picture her palm on the rail, then on her skirt. She wiped her hand like she was done. The words leave a taste that makes me swallow twice. A lab tech pokes in with a labeled tube and a request. We need consent for your daughter's talk screen. I sign fast because hesitation feels lethal. The tech darts out before I can ask anything more. Through the panel, I catch a brief stall on the monitor. A nurse adjusts the line and mouths okay. Another holds up a small swab to the doctor. The doctor nods once and calls for a second sample. Security escorts my mother toward an interview room down the hall. She walks like a person arriving for an appointment. The detective follows with calm steps and steady posture. I trail them until a nurse pulls me back with two fingers. We still need you close. Her tone lands and pins me. I stop and focus on my breathing so I don't float off. The glass hums under my palm like a warning. A different officer approaches with a clear bag and a puzzled face. This was in your kitchen bin. Inside rests a blister sheet with 3 missing gaps. I nod because my throat won't trust a word. Did you recognize the brand? He watches my eyes, not the plastic. Yes, it belongs to my mother's night routine. He writes that down with trimmed strokes that feel final. The detective returns from the interview and studies my reaction. She gave a very short timeline. He flips a page and stops moving the pen. She claims she found your daughter already failing. I taste copper and shake my head hard. She stood over the bed when I walked in. The officer near the doorway looks toward the interview room. I hold his gaze like a dare I can't back up. A pediatric resident steps in with quick feet and focus. Your child is stabilized in the interim. He asks permission to start antidotal therapy while labs confirm. I sign again because hesitation is a luxury I don't have. A social worker slides beside me with calm hands. We will keep you informed consistently. She asks for emergency contacts and who can sit with me. I give names because I need witnesses. More than comfort. Through the narrow window, I catch my mother turning out her pockets. Coins clink on the table as she aligns them. She sets a folded tissue aside as if it matters. The detective points at it and she nods once. A nurse brings a paper gown and gestures at my shirt. There's trace on the sleeves. She drops the gown within reach and steps back. I change fast and bag the fabric for evidence without shaking. The officer with the blister sheet returns with a second item. Found this cap under the crib. The small circle clicks against the plastic like a clock. My stomach grabs at itself and won't let go. I want to scream, but my voice chooses steel. Search her purse thoroughly. The officer looks to the detective and gets a nod. My chest aches with relief and fury in the same beat. An aide peeks around the frame with a message from inside. Doctor wants to update you now. I walk in and keep my spine straight because I need to hear everything. The doctor points to a chart and taps once. We're treating presumptively. His tone stays even and direct. Early signs suggest a common compound from household sources. My mouth goes dry because common means available everywhere. Will she wake up? The question sounds smaller than I feel. We're buying time while we clear it. He looks at the monitor and then at me. I nod because holding steady helps the room stay solid. Back in the hall, the detective lifts his head from a call. Your mother requested counsel. He tucks the phone away and watches my hands. She also asked if you wanted tea. I stare through him and feel the suggestion land wrong. Tea means routine and routine means denial. No, the word hits the air like a thrown stone. A custodian emerges from the bathroom with a sealed bin. The detective stops him and checks the liner. He pulls a tiny measuring spoon from the lip. The metal glints and vanishes into a bag. I lean on the wall and let the tremor pass through. Memory throws me the soft trace on my tongue from earlier. Not a flavor I recognize, but close to something medicinal. I steady myself because guessing won't help now. The social worker returns with chairs and a small tray. Eat a bite if you can. I take a cracker because it keeps my jaw moving. Chewing feels like proof I still exist. The officer from the search lifts a new clear bag, a crumpled receipt with today's date and a single item. The brand matches the blister sheet and my knees want to fail. Where was this? He points back at the purse and doesn't blink. The detective opens the interview door and signals me to wait. My mother swivels her attention toward the glass calmly. She raises her brows like we share a secret I forgot. The hairs on my forearms rise without permission. He asks her again about the timing and the reason. Her lips shape something I can't hear. He nods and writes 3 words that make him pause. He circles the line twice and closes his notebook. A nurse touches my elbow and leans close. Your daughter will be moved to step down soon. I follow her back to the room where the team eases pace. The monitor climbs into a steadier rhythm that doesn't fool me. A case officer arrives with a portable kit and a stern look. We need your consent to swab surfaces at home. I nod before he finishes and give him the door code. Action calms the panic that keeps scratching. He asks if my mother holds any spare keys. I answer without thought and then watch him think. He writes another note and exchanges a glance with the detective. They both pocket the thought and move on. I sit again and count my breaths in groups of 4. Across the hall, my mother adjusts her hair with careful fingers. She glances at the clock and then at me. I realize she isn't worried about time passing. The detective returns with a thin smile that isn't kind. We have preliminary confirmation. He keeps his voice low and level. It matches the residue on the cap. He waits for me to understand the weight. Arrest her, my own voice surprises me with how clean it sounds. He nods once and signals the waiting officers. My mother stands before they touch her like she's known the cue. The officer steers her toward a side room and closes the door. I plant myself in the hallway and keep that door in view. A nurse squeezes my forearm and tells me to breathe. I nod once and wait for the next demand. The detective returns with a clipboard held low. Consent to search your place. He sets a pen on the edge of the form. My hand trembles on contact, yet I sign anyway. If I hesitate now, I become part of the fog. Before he steps away, I touch his sleeve. Start with the bedroom. My voice holds and that surprises me. He studies my face for a second then moves fast. I watch him go and feel a click inside my ribs. A resident ushers me into a tiny consult corner. She is stable for the moment. The words land like thin ice. We need labs and close monitoring. I nod because questions will puncture me right now. DHR. While the window, I track her small shape under steady hands. A nurse adjusts a line and gestures for a cartridge. Another taps her wrist and calls out a number. I collect each fragment and stack them into hope that shakes. The detective returns with another officer in tow. We need basic statements while your child is treated. I square my shoulders and give the sequence clean. He asks exact times and I answer without embroidery. He pauses at my description of the smell and writes it down. Anything new introduced today? He keeps the tone even. I replay the afternoon beat by beat and find only one anomaly. My mother arrived unannounced. My throat tightens on that last word and stays tight. He notes it and glances toward the side room. We will interview her now. I fold my arms to keep them from grabbing him. He reads that impulse and stays an extra second. We will handle this carefully. The door opens and he vanishes again. I focus on tasks I can control. I authorize blood draws with a quick signature. I call my neighbor to check the lock at home. She answers on the second ring and promises to wait for officers. Relief flickers, then goes dark. The door to the side room cracks open. My mother's voice floats out level and measured. I acted for the greater good. The phrase snags me and holds. The detective replies too low to catch, yet his posture sharpens. He emerges and asks for my keys. We must secure any potential sources. I hand over the ring without argument. He leaves with a purposeful stride that turns my stomach. I anchor myself to a plastic chair so I don't follow. A social worker appears with forms I never wanted. She speaks gently and keeps her sentences short. Do you have safe adults who can meet you here? I list two names and keep my tone flat. She offers water and I shake my head. My phone buzzes with a message from the neighbor. Two officers here entering now. I stare at the screen until it dims. Another message arrives 6 minutes later. They found something in the trash under the sink. I flag down the detective the moment he reappears. He lifts a palm, already aware of the update. We will process it at once. He doesn't add details, and that restraint terrifies me more than blunt facts. I press my tongue to my teeth to stop the next question. A nurse jogs past with a sealed container. She swipes into the lab and vanishes. I watch the hallway like a hawk watches a field. No movement, then too much. My pulse thuds hard enough to sway my balance. The side room opens again. My mother steps out between two officers and doesn't resist. She meets my eyes for a beat and offers a small smile. I stand up so fast the chair scrapes. Why? The word rips out and hangs there. She studies my face like I am a puzzle with one piece missing. You will understand soon. She turns her shoulder and lets them guide her along. I take a half step after them and stop. If I go farther, I will do something I cannot undo. The detective touches my elbow and steers me back. Let us do our work. He checks his phone, then looks toward the lab door. We should have preliminary screens shortly. Each minute grows teeth and chews through resolve. A nurse hurries out of my child's room and waves me over. She's holding her own. The report is clipped and practical. We are running an antidote protocol pending confirmation. I swallow hard because that last word means a knife is ready. An orderly wheels a cart past with fresh equipment. He bumps the doorframe and mutters under his breath. The minor slip jolts me out of my trance. I step to the sink, splash water on my face, and force my breathing slow. My phone lights again. The neighbor sends a photo of a small packet logged by evidence. I don't open the image because I know the shape already. The reality slams me back against the wall. I breathe through my nose until the shaking subsides. The detective returns with a tech in scrubs. Initial test indicates a common toxic agent. He chooses each word like he is defusing a bomb. Your child is receiving what she needs while we verify. I nod because collapsing won't help her right now. He continues before I can answer. We swabbed your mother's hands. He pauses and waits for my face to steady. The rapid screen matched the substance. My vision narrows to a tunnel with one unbearable point at the end. I grip the chair and keep my jaw locked. What happens next? The question comes out in a voice I barely recognize. He meets the question head on. She will be detained for further processing. The relief and horror mingle like ice and fire. A new doctor steps out with a guarded expression. Her vitals are steady. He glances at the chart and keeps moving. We continue the protocol and watch closely. I nod and focus on the door handle that leads to her. I lean against the glass and whisper a promise, not of forgiveness, not of understanding, a promise to follow every thread until it bleeds truth. The handle warms under my palm and I don't let go. The detective positions a chair near me and sits. When she is transferred upstairs, you can accompany her. He checks his notes and clears his throat. We will ask more questions after she is settled. I brace for the next wave and keep my spine straight. My neighbor texts again with one last line. Back gate wide open when we arrived. The message twists something I thought I knew. The house was locked when I left. I look at the detective and feel the ground tilt. The tech hands the detective a sealed pouch and steps back. He lifts it so I can see the label without reading details. My stomach flips, not from shock but from recognition. He nods toward the interview rooms and keeps it moving fast. I catch the door as they lead her down the corridor. She glances past me, eyes dry and fixed on nothing. There was no choice. Her lips barely move like she is sparing breath. I take one step after her and stop at the threshold. A nurse waves me into the room and checks the line. She's responding to treatment. The words land sharp and necessary. We escalate if numbers slip. I lower my hands to keep them from shaking in front of my child. The detective angles back to me with quick questions. Anyone access your yard recently? My head jerks yes because the gate was open. He writes once and calls someone on speaker, short phrases, no filler. Security asks for identification bracelets and verification. I recite the birth date voice tight but steady enough. They print a wristband, then buzz me for limited access. The lock clicks like a clock starting a countdown. Two officers return from my house with fresh updates. Latch forced from outside. One shows a photo and waits for my reaction. I feel anger rise like heat under a door. Keep searching, I say, and they go without arguing. The social worker reappears with a clipboard and firm tone. We are activating a safety plan now. She lists steps and I agree before she finishes. If action exists, I want it even if it cuts. Lab results arrive in fragments that hurt to hear. Common compound, high concentration. The doctor keeps eye contact and watches me absorb it. Timing suggests administration within the last hour. My throat tightens, but my legs hold. I ask for a minute with her in custody. The detective measures me, then relents with conditions. No touching, no threats, one question. I accept because I need one clear thing today. They seat her behind glass with a small speaker. Her posture is exact, hands folded like a lesson. Who else was in our house? My voice lands flat, each word a nail. She rests her chin on two fingers and studies me like a math problem. Someone watched the fence, she says without blinking. You missed it. The speaker hisses, then silence creeps in. The detective marks that sentence and signals time. Back in the hall, my phone buzzes again. The neighbor sends a short clip from across the street. A silhouette lingers near our back hedge, then vanishes fast. I forward it to the detective and feel dread sharpen. He calls the team at my house and sets a perimeter. We need canvas within 3 blocks. His voice has zero weight on extra words. I grip the railing until my knuckles hurt, then force my fingers loose. A nurse cracks the door and motions me closer. She stirred when I spoke her name. The line hums and the monitor flickers in small climbs. I rest my forehead on the frame and breathe through the ache. Another message pings from the scene team. Footprints by the gate, two different sizes. I read it twice to make sure I'm awake. The detective looks up and already knows. He taps a note and heads for the exit. I step back into the room and count her breaths. Each rise feels like a fragile favor about to expire. The doctor adjusts the pump and watches the numbers settle. We keep course and wait for confirmatory screens. A uniformed officer stands near the visitor chairs now. He keeps his eyes on my mother's door across the hall. She sits at the table, wrists resting on the edge. She does not look at me, which makes me look harder. The tech returns with residue testing for my kitchen. Surface swabs positive. He folds a sheet and asks for my signature. I scribble and push it back with a stiff wrist. No one pretends this is normal anymore. The detective circles to the glass and nods at me. We have enough for custodial hold. He waits for my response and gets none. Adrenaline burned away every polite layer hours ago. Do you want to call anyone? The social worker offers a phone with quiet hands. I dial the only number that matters and ask for overnight childcare backup. The answer comes quick and certain, which loosens my jaw. An officer steps out of the interview room with a fresh note. She claims she protected the family. He watches my face for cracks I refuse to give him. From what, I ask, and the echo hurts more than the words. The lab pages the doctor and pulls him inside. He ease with a clipped update, then signals the nurse. Administer the second stage antidote now. The order lands hard and launches a flurry of motion. I stare at the glass and rehearse a promise I can sustain. I will not look away when it turns ugly. I will not soften what I saw. I will not let anyone rename it into something gentler. The detective's phone lights with a call from the field. He listens, then presses speaker for me to hear. Backyard prints end at the alley, no vehicle marks. The nothingness is louder than proof, and it stings. He ends the call and pins the hallway with his gaze. We keep 2 lanes open, he says, voice low. Inside actor and outside catalyst. I nod once because both roads point at the same door. My mother raises her head like she heard us through the wall. She lifts one finger and shakes it once. The gesture is small and terrifying because it signals certainty. Inside the room, the monitor jumps and my heart goes with it. The nurse leans over the bed and calls for a number. The doctor moves to the foot and checks the chart twice. Something shifts under the sheet and then goes still. Alarms erupt and the team swarms the bed. A nurse braces my shoulder and orders space. The doctor checks the airway and signals for meds. My hands curl into fists I can't unclench. Her body jolts once, then again, and settles. The pump whirs and a number ticks upward. Hold steady, someone breathes near my ear. I plant my feet like I'm guarding a door that won't stay shut. They thread a tube, quick and precise. The screen stutters, then evens in small steps. The doctor raises 2 fingers and everyone pauses. I taste metal and wait for the next blow. Across the hall, the custody door opens. 2 officers escort her toward processing. She doesn't look at me until the last second. The smallest smile touches her mouth and vanishes like a trick. The detective returns with a fresh printout. He keeps it folded until we're alone near the sink. Confirmatory labs match the rapid screen. He lowers his voice. Delivery was oral, likely mixed into something recent. I force my jaw to work from my kitchen. He nods once and clicks his pen closed. We found traces on a utensil by the drying rack. Heat spikes behind my eyes and drains away in a rush. A nurse sticks her head out. We're moving her to intensive care now. The bed rolls and I walk beside the wheel. Each corridor bend feels like a test I have to pass. I match my pace to the cart and don't blink. In the elevator, the detective's phone buzzes. He listens for 10 seconds and turns to me. A neighbor heard a vehicle idle behind your fence. He checks the timestamp and swears under his breath. We step off and the doors close behind us. He fires a message to the team on the block. Pull doorbell captures within that window, he says. The order lands fast and leaves a crackling silence. Intensive care smells like effort and fear. A nurse swaps out the bag and tracks the drip. The doctor signs the order and glances up at me. We're in a better corridor now, but we don't relax. The detective motions me to a corner by the chart. We're charging her pending arraignment. He watches my face for any drift. You will be contacted for a formal statement at length. I want a protective order today. My voice doesn't shake this time. Do it, he answers, already typing the request. Paper will not bring peace, but paper can build a wall. My phone buzzes again with a new clip. The silhouette from earlier reappears on another camera 2 streets over. Same gait, same angle of the head. The image freezes just as they turn toward a parked van. Send that to me now. The detective's thumb flies across the screen. He warns the field unit and dispatches another car. I lean on the rail until the cold seeps through my sleeves. A nurse lifts my child's hand and checks capillary refill. She's fighting, she says, not unkind. The line hums with quiet persistence. I rest my palm near her wrist without touching. 2 officers return with a labeled container. Residue matched on a handled item from your house. The detective reads the tag and looks to me. The handled item lives in every kitchen. I swallow hard and nod once. We need to know who had access last night. His tone stays even and relentless. I list 3 names and stop before I add hers again. He writes them down and pockets the list like ammunition. An intake clerk arrives with forms and a stern look. Sign here for restricted visitors. I sign without scanning the paragraphs. The pen digs a groove into the paper I want to split open. The officers wheel her mother past a holding. Her gaze never wavers. I prevented worse, she murmurs, eyes bright. The detective angles his body between us before I move. Do you have anything else to say? My question cuts the air like a wire. She lifts her shoulders in a tiny shrug. Watch the door on the alley. She smiles again and disappears around the corner. The doctor re-enters with a new rhythm in his stride. Numbers are creeping the right way, he offers. We maintain this schedule and reassess in 2 hours. I memorize the cadence like a survival drill. My phone rings with an unknown number that knows my street. A resident 2 houses down reports a hatch opening at dusk. The detective puts them on speaker and records the details. A direction, a time, a partial plate, then static. I stand at the bedside and make a decision I can live with. I will testify to every detail I saw and felt. I will not soften language for comfort or pity. I will use the sharp words because they fit. The detective pockets his phone and faces me square. We're bringing in digital forensics on your routers. He waits for permission and I give it fast. He nods like a chess player who sees 2 moves ahead. A nurse adjusts the tubing and flicks the valve. My child's lashes tremble once and go quiet. The monitor climbs by a hair and holds. I exhale and don't notice I was holding breath until now. The social worker returns with a folder and a clean checklist. We set emergency custody protocols for your household. She taps 3 lines and looks up for yes. I give it because planning is the only control left. Down the hall, the elevator dings and spits out a new officer. He carries a small evidence bag pinched like a live thing. The detective takes it and opens it just enough. His eyes change and then fix on me. We recovered something else from your trash, he says. My throat tightens in reflex. He tilts the bag and shows a strip with faint marks, not medicine, not food, a testing kit, the kind that checks for early life. I don't touch the bag, I look at the faint lines. The detective watches my face and waits. My pulse hammers once, twice, like a countdown I can't stop. Where did you find it? My voice lands flat and controlled. Bathroom trash, the officer answers, gaze steady. The word bathroom snaps something fragile inside my chest. The detective studies me for a beat. Is it yours? The question hangs like a test. I close my eyes and see the calendar squares I never marked. I need 5 minutes, I say, already moving. He blocks the hall with one quick step. You can have 3 and I stay within sight. I nod because bargaining costs energy I need. I wash my hands and stare at the sink. I counted 20 and failed to breathe slower. I look up and accept the new truth. Inside me, a second life, and there is still the first on that bed. Back by the door, the detective lowers his voice. Does she know? I shake my head because I never told anyone. He exhales through his nose like he planned for this possibility. Then the motive shifts, he says, eyes narrowing. She framed her choice as protection. The word curves like a blade and points at the glass. Protection for whom and from what and why now? A nurse leans out with a clipped update. She's holding stable. The line maintains its steady rhythm. The doctor will reassess after the next interval. My shoulders drop a fraction and tense again. They wheel my mother past toward transport. Shackles clink once and silence returns. I match her pace along the wall without speaking. She turns her head and looks straight at my stomach. Now you see, she murmurs, almost pleased. I stop hard and feel the detective shift closer. See what? My voice scrapes like sand. She smiles without warmth and lets the officers push on. I step into the interview booth and hit the intercom. Did you know about the test? She nods once, hands perfectly folded, my throat dries. Then why target her? The question rips clean. She was first in line, she answers, eyes bright. The one behind needed a clear path. My skin crawls as the sentence lands. The detective writes 3 words and underlines them twice. You touched nothing else, I say, pressing the button. Her gaze never flickers from my face. I remove the variable. She tips her chin like she solved a puzzle. The detective cuts the feed and turns to me. We have enough to hold without bail. He keeps his tone neutral and firm, but her logic suggests further risk outside. My mouth opens, but no sound comes. A tech rushes in with a printed still. The silhouette near the van has a limp, a sleeve rides up as they turn the wheel, a wrist tattoo flashes, a small hooked shape near the bone. The detective snaps a photo with his phone. We can work with that. He calls dispatch and names the symbol. Units fan toward the alley grid. I feel dread deepen, then harden into focus. I ask the nurse for a room chair and she brings one. I place it by the bed and stay upright. I tell myself I will not look away again. The monitor answers with patient insistence. My phone lights with an unknown text. Leave the alley door alone tonight, it warns. You don't want the second one harmed. My throat tightens as if fingers close around it. The detective reads the message over my shoulder. He snaps into motion and signals uniformed back. Up, we lock down your address now, he says. My home becomes evidence and bait in one breath. He points at my stomach without touching. We add medical protection to your plan. The social worker nods and starts another form. I sign in 3 places and keep my hands from shaking. Another ping hits my phone. A new angle shows the van's back panel. A sticker peels at the corner with that same hooked shape. The detective grins without joy. We have our thread, we pull. I stare at my mother through the glass again. She watches me calmly like the outcome is already printed. You think you saved us, I say through the speaker. You detonated the center of my house. She tilts her head and answers without heat. Shrapnel hurts less than what waited. Her certainty sickens me because it sounds rehearsed. The officer opens the door and rolls her away. The doctor returns and checks the numbers. They're moving the right direction. He sets a timer and nods once. We're not out, but we're walking toward out. I grip the rail until my fingers ache. The detective pockets his phone and turns back. We raid the van if we find it sitting. He watches my eyes and speaks carefully. If someone else is playing, they will panic now. I press my palm to the glass and whisper a promise. I will carry both children through whatever this turns into. I will not barter with her logic again. The door to the ward clicks and footsteps gather fast.